Are you ready to think big and act bold? Then you are in the right place. This is Innovative Entrepreneurs, a podcast that will bring you the stories, insights, and tips from some of the most successful and innovative entrepreneurs in the world. I am your host, Erica Bailey, and I am here to help you start, scale, and sustain your own entrepreneurial journey. Let's get started.
I'm truly grateful that you choose to listen to my podcast and get to know the guests that I have who are truly, truly amazing. Today, we have a remarkable guest joining us. His name is John Bianchi. He is the founder of STR Search. What's interesting is we're going to get into how that's kind of related to STR Cribs, which we just did an interview on that one. John's expertise, it lies in directing over 70 million in investments towards strong cash flowing Airbnbs across the country with 100% success rate across 150 plus properties. Wow. He is the go-to guy for helping clients acquire a profitable Airbnb. When he's not diving into deep data, he is enjoying precious moments with his newborn daughter. Congratulations. I'm so happy to have you here today, John. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it big time. That was a great intro.
Well, you're a great guy. It makes it easy. So tell me a little about what STR Search is. What do you do? And how does the business bring value?
So easiest way to explain it is that we're an Airbnb data consulting firm. We find people profitable short-term rentals. So we help guide people to know which property to purchase that's going to make for a really good short-term rental. The main metric that we use for what's a good short-term rental is one that cash flows really well. Right. And if it can cash flow, you don't have to sell it. And if you don't have to sell it, you can continue to hold it for as long as you want and sell it when it's made you a ton of money. Right. So that's the core of what we do.
And you do this through pretty much data analytics and making decisions based on strategic decisions is what it sounds like. So cool. So can you share with me a little bit how you started in entrepreneurship, what led to your focus of short-term rental market?
Yeah. So the quick version of this is that I've always had an act for entrepreneurship. Like it's just something that's always been on my mind. I remember I was literally just telling my girlfriend this story the other day where, I cut my neighbor's lawn and I made $20, and it was like I cut it like a half an hour, right, to an hour, and that was when I was 13 years old. That was pretty good money, right? Yeah. And then I found out that my friend down the street was cutting 10 lawns and was walking away with way more. And I was like, wait a second. I'm like, I could be making way more money in comparison to what I'm currently doing if I were to just find more clients, right? Like I was thinking that at that young age of like, that's possible to do, right? Okay. So I've always kind of had that gear in my brain where it's like, how do you make more money? Right? How are people able to do that? And really, it's all just about how do you provide more value? Whoever provides more value makes more money, right? So you're providing a service to everybody, and that's what really matters. And so, I was always trying to figure out how do I start a business. I didn't come from money whatsoever. And so I didn't have any money to be able to save up or get loaned to me or whatever it was to make it work. So started with businesses that you could build up clients and continue to build them up from there. So I used to be a financial advisor, and built up a client book that way. Got to a point where I didn't care for it anymore, the industry and how it was and what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. So I looked for a different business, and the other business I found was Airbnbs. I learned about it, researched it, got pretty good at it, left the finance business, got to the Airbnb business, built it up to about 15 to 17 locations, somewhere in that range. Also had an Airbnb cleaning company along with it. And then COVID came around and kind of wiped out that business. And I, at that point, was pivoting, and I had to, figure out what I was going to do next. And one thing I realized I did really, really well was studying Airbnb data. That was like the one thing that I just naturally always gravitated towards. And I actually, my Airbnb data consulting firm that I have now is built out just from so many people reaching out for help. And so many people reached out. I got so many people referred to me that I realized that there was a need for this, that there was a business there, and that I could start to add value. And so, now here we are, however many years later, and STR Search is the main company that I'm building up, and we find people profitable properties with a 100% success rate so far. So
100% success rate.
Yeah, that's a big deal to me.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know any other industry. I mean, even in marketing, right? That's what we do. There's not 100% success rate. So you should be very, very proud of that accomplishment, John.
I'm without a doubt obsessed with Airbnb data and being able to understand it and to ensure that I'm not losing anybody any money when it comes to purchasing these properties. And, I've got to work with the largest short-term rental investment fund in America and got to learn from amazing people on that team and just continue to hone in on my skills. And I feel like I've got a really good act now for being able to figure these things out. So just want to be able to provide that value to as many people as possible, right? So
I love that. You probably said provide value, I would say 6 times since we started the conversation, it's really important though, because that is the reason we do what we do, right? Our goal is to provide value to other people. But I don't think businesses really focus on that anymore. It's more about the money and just the technicality of running a business, when honest to God, the best marketing, the best thing you can do is provide value that ultimately results in success. So I just wanted to let you know, I really, really like and appreciate that is your, that's kind of your motto, it sounds like, or, because I believe the same thing. And I believe that in order to bring value, you have to start with kindness, and you have to start with understanding the audience, the individuals that you're trying to reach out to or that you're trying to work with or bring into the business. And it all starts with kindness, in my opinion. So I like that you say that. It makes me smile.
Yeah, that's very accurate. That's kind of spot on, right? Because like when you're adding value, what you're doing is you're making something better than what it was for the most part, right? And you almost have to understand what's wrong for other people, where it's like, hey, I can help you with that, right? It's like, I can help you cross the street. I see that you need that help. And then you realize that you can, if you just have the business mind behind it, right, you can figure out how to turn it into a business that helps more than one person, right? So
I love it. So I always ask, like, what was your why? So, I mean, I understand you love the industry, you love being an entrepreneur, you started at a very young age, understanding that there's always the opportunity to do more. But for example, my why of starting my business was time freedom, so that I had the opportunity to spend time with my kids. I could do, I can go on vacation and not have to worry about it, or I can work from the beach if I damn well wanted to. I could go to all my kids, games and never have to ask for permission. Based off of that kind of example, what do you think your why is?
So as you're asking the question, I was thinking to myself, like, what is my why? And nothing came to my mind. But I want to talk more about that for a second, because there's sort of layers to why I haven't come up with an exact reason. For like, one thing that I have tried to do a lot is development, right? Personally, to be a better person, right? Better leader, a better whatever, just trying to be better at what I'm doing. And when you start to do this, you start to learn from these people that talk about purpose in life and what is your why and why do you do all these things, right? And that was something that I consumed a lot of for a little while. And one thing that flipped in my mind at one point was I realized that your purpose is based off of your actions and not really what you say it is. And that your purpose is made up. When people say like, oh, what is your purpose? What is your purpose in life? Why do you do what you do? Like, why do you exist? Right? Everyone is just making up why they exist. You may say, at the end of someone's life, you look back at their life and you say their purpose was X, right? But it's really just their purpose is based off of what they did. And so as you do things in your life, that becomes your purpose in life. And I'm not sure if this is making sense. I haven't.
It is. I'm totally tracking. Totally tracking.
Right? You're tracking that, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, my purpose in life is to, do whatever it is. But if they don't do that thing, then it's not their purpose in life, right? They can say it or they can feel it or whatever. It's all bull unless you actually do it, right? And so what I realized at one point is like, they're telling me like, find your purpose in life, say what your purpose is. And I'm like, I'm saying it, but I'm doing something different. Therefore, it's not actually my purpose. Like my purpose is whatever I end up doing at the end of the day. And so there's that, right? So, and the reason I'm thinking about this, when you talk about what's your why, it kind of falls along a similar path where, in the sense that your why has a lot of different reasons. And it's never really like, I just do it for this one reason. It's like, well, it's actually a variety of reasons. And sometimes you don't realize what your why is until you've kind of dived deeper into what you are doing. Right. So, maybe your why kind of keeps you going, keeps you getting out of bed, keeps it making things easier, but that's maybe not why you got started in the first place. Maybe you just realized that there was an opportunity and you seized that opportunity, right? But now your why that keeps you pushing on that opportunity is because you want to be able to provide a good life for your family and be able to also go to your kids' games if you want to be able to go to your kids' games, right? So like you have that becomes the thing that keeps you going. That makes sense, right?
Yes, actually, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that was probably the best why answer I have had in all of my podcasts.
Okay.
Because you're honestly, that really makes sense. And I strongly suggest that our listeners actually go back that minute and listen to what he's meaning about your why and understanding your purpose in life. And I love that you say your purpose isn't a purpose unless you do something about it. Right? Like my purpose is to be a mom. Well, if I don't have kids,
Right.
I'm a mom, right?
Yeah.
My purpose is to elevate brands through podcasts, right? But if I'm not doing a podcast, I can't do that. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, is that if you don't follow up and actually take actionable steps in order to achieve that purpose, it doesn't exist.
Right. You're just bullshitting yourself. You're lying to yourself. To make yourself feel good, right? Even as you're explaining it, I'm kind of realizing like it doesn't perfectly tie in with what is your why, but I feel like those two kind of go hand in hand. Like, what is your why and what is your purpose, right? And they technically could be the same thing. Like, my why is because I want to save the rainforest, and my purpose is to save the rainforest, and so therefore you try to save the rainforest. But if you're not doing that, then that's not your why and that's not your purpose. But I also, again, I think the why is more something that comes along that keeps you getting out of bed. I don't know if it's something that you start with. I think it's something that happens as you're going along to keep pushing on the hard days, Yeah,
actually, it makes a lot of sense. It's very simple, but not necessarily easy, right?
Yeah.
You have to work at it. And sometimes you really have to try and figure out what that why is and what it is as you grow, and understand it and respect it, right? Because if you don't know your why, if you don't know your purpose, you have no direction, right? Are you tracking me there?
Well, and as you're saying that, maybe I just have never defined it as my why, but like the thing that I think about all the time is that I want to be a good producer as a male. Like I genuinely think of that. So I go, I want to be a good producer, and a good producer is somebody who provides well for their family and that, comes through money. And so then therefore I want to be able to provide a lot. I want to have good amount of resources to protect my family as I continue to scale and grow. Right. And that's a big piece of like who I am and what I want to do. And so when things get tough, I think to myself, shut up, go be a good producer and go do what you got to do. Right.
Put on your big girl panties.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like it is what it is. Just go do what you got to do. If you're a farmer, you don't get the choice to plow the field or not plow the field. You have to plow the field no matter how good or bad your day is. And so just because we work in industries where you have to hop on a podcast and have a conversation, it's not as hard as plowing the field. But the idea is that you got to do it regardless. Right. So that's, I don't know.
You're absolutely spot on. I think that's fantastic. And I can hear, how your why changed over your life. Right. So at your 12, 13, your why was to make more money because you saw the opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
Right? And then as you grow, maybe your why is to make a lot of money so that you can travel. And then as you have a family, it's your why is to support and be a good producer for your family. So I can understand now how that why can change over your lifetime. And, it's very good, man. Very good.
I'm glad that you engaged me into that. I haven't been able to have a conversation like that in a while. And as I'm saying these things, I'm like, I haven't talked about this stuff in like years. And I used to think about it all the time. And that's why I kind of have these like hardcore beliefs in the way that I'm saying it right now, because I believe I thought through it a lot. But as I'm trying to explain it back to you, I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm making sense here.
I think you had a lot of value to offer as you described that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think my listeners really need to understand that why can change. And like I said, this is the most interesting response to that question I think I've had. So talk to me. I see on your website there's a Bianchi method. What is that? What is the Bianchi method?
That is the most value that I've ever created, without a doubt. So my business objective is to ensure that nobody buys an unprofitable property again when it comes to Airbnbs. Okay. The reason being is because I know how to find profitable ones. And so then therefore I should let other people know how they can find profitable ones. Right now, obviously, I'm building a business around I can do that for you. You want to hire me? I can do that for you. If you want to take my time, we'll make that happen. But the reality is that a lot of people don't have the resources to be able to hire me, right? And so what I wanted to be able to do with the Bianchi method is give people a way to still find profitable properties. Because again, we're trying to ensure that nobody finds an unprofitable property. So if I'm trying to ensure that nobody finds an unprofitable property, I can't put a paywall behind anything like that, because then not everybody can afford it and use it. And so I can't sell my trainings or sell my process or whatever it may be, because then it doesn't hit everybody. So by literally making our slogan ensure that no one buys an unprofitable property, it forces me to give it away for free. And so that is a 40-hour long training course that teaches them every single last step that I have gone through to find the 150 plus properties that are cash flow positive. It's everything. There's all the secrets or like the way I always explain is I don't give you the answers, but I give you the process. If you follow the process, you get to the answers.
Yeah. Wow. So is that what these courses are that are on your website? Are these
exactly
free courses?
All free. Yep. So I started off with one that's called AirDNA on there, the AirDNA OG course or something like that. That one's like 2.5 hours long, teaches people the process very simply, like how I used to understand it about 4 or 5 years ago. And then I made a couple of other little courses in there as well. And then I came up with the Bianchi method, which is 40 hours long. So it's everything.
Wow. So these are the 3 free courses that we're talking about.
Yeah. If you actually scroll all the way up to the top, and then go to the where it says free courses right at the top there. And then it's going to ask you to make a quit. You can just sign up for free. It's nice to see it on the website, but when you actually look at the course itself, you can actually see behind the scenes. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 courses there. And then the Bianchi method would be the 6th. So those are all free courses. Most of those are about 2 to 4 hours long. So again, this is my masterpiece. If you scroll through this, the very first section is going to teach you about how to find a market that's going to be a really profitable market for you. And if you were to continue through that, it goes into if you're going to be purchasing a property or if you're going to rent a property. So different ways of being able to decipher a market at a high level. The idea here is that there's thousands of markets to enter into, but which one do you decide to go into, right? So which one's best for me? How do I know it's going to cash flow at sort of like a high level? Okay. And then the next section here is the buy box. So a buy box being what is the absolute best thing to buy within the market? What is the most optimal thing for me to purchase? And how do I know? So building a buy box can take like a week sometimes. If I were to build a buy box for Austin, Texas, it would take a very long time. But once you figure out the market you want to go into, you then deep dive the market by building out that buy box. And eventually you'll know that within a very specific market, you need to buy a property that has at least 5 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms with a loft that you can convert, that has a high ceiling, that has a flat backyard, that has a pool, that has a second living room, and it needs to all be under the price of $500,000. And I need to design it specifically for kids, and I need to make sure that there's X, Y, and Z amenities in the backyard. And if I can do all of that, it's going to cash flow $25,000 to $75,000 a year. And that's what a building on a buy box will do for you, right? And so, yeah, if you scroll from there, if you keep going down, you get the hunting for the property. So now that you know exactly what you need to purchase, it's just a matter of hunting for it, finding it, right, within the market, waiting for it, or looking to see how you can convert a 3-bedroom into something bigger that is exactly what you need to be profitable. And so how do you find that property is hunting for it. And then if you scroll from here, I think we get into evaluation. So this is what I would consider to be the most important part, which is being able to look at the property that you're considering to purchase. You've already built out this buy box. You think you know what's the exact best thing to buy, and you found a property that you think matches your buy box criteria. But now we need to dive into every single last little detail and get a really, 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 really good estimate of how much that property is going to actually end up making. Is it going to make 80,000 or 100,000? Because that could be all of your profit, right? If you miss that, and from here, once you figure that out, you can figure out what amenities are going to matter for it, and then you can do your underwriting. Right. So do you need a hot tub? Do you need a pool? Do you need all the things? Then you get into the underwriting and you can put it all together. So now I've got this property. I'm considering to purchase it. I know it's going to make $100,000 a year. I need to put this much into it. and you can figure out how profitable it's going to be before you ever get it. And then these are some additional bonus videos from some all-stars in the Airbnb community, such as Avery, Carl, and Diana, and It's Bridget Bitch, and Blue, and all these guys helping people design their properties properly. So, and then you can actually go to the next page too, and it goes into even more. So,
oh my gosh, this had to take you forever.
It did, yeah. So there's also Airbnb taxes and mortgages, and then there's a bunch of templates after that you can get for free. So,
oh my gosh, yeah. And you're giving this away for free.
Yeah, because you gotta, again, if we want to ensure that nobody buys an unprofitable property, I can't put it up for sale because then not everybody can access it. I've talked to a lot of people who were barely scraping by, trying their hardest to buy an Airbnb. And I know this is going to sound altruistic and all this blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that, like, I've talked to single mothers who, couldn't afford to do certain things, but they wanted to get into the business. And, other people who were like working minimum wage jobs, but wanted to get out of that. Like, people are dying to get out of these crap situations that they're in. And Airbnb is a vehicle to be able to do that. But if they buy the wrong property, they're screwed from the get-go. And so again, it's like, here, you learn this skill, do it right, get the right property, get out of your shit situation, whether it takes you, 6 months or 5 years, like whatever you got to do, just Airbnb is a vehicle to do that, but you have to do it right. But if you want to hire us, you can hire us, right? And we can work with you. So
it's kind of like a done for you versus a you do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So the courses and everything is to build trust within the community. Let everyone know I know what I'm doing. Right. Prove it to them like you've got this. And then when they go, I don't want to do it myself, they hire me. It's pretty straightforward business model in my mind. But
with 100%, it would be dumb not to come and call you. I love the mission statement, or the never buy an unprofitable Airbnb again. I love the fact that you are honestly walking the walk, right? It's not just buy this course for $199 and we're going to change your life. It's literally, I am here to serve and provide value, just like you were talking about in the beginning. That's phenomenal. And then maybe I go through all these courses, or some of the courses, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm going to hire them.
Yeah. There's kind of like a few categories of people. There's some people who don't have a choice. They have to learn it themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's other people who are, high W-2 earners making like $250,000 a year. They're experts at what they do. They want to hire the expert in this industry to be able to take advantage of the STR tax loophole, right? So they come in, they don't even start the course. They just go, I'm hiring you. Then you get the people right in the middle who are like, I want to make this happen. They're kind of like, they could maybe afford me, but maybe they don't want to. So they try to learn it themselves. And then they finally just like, fuck it, and they hire us, right? So again, I wanted to give people the options. I didn't want to hold back. I want to give them the option. You can do one or the other, and it makes me feel really good because now I don't feel like one of those people who's like, yeah, you can buy a $6,000 course if you want this information, right? It's like, no.
So you are actually known as the Airbnb Data Guy and have directed over 70 million of investments for profitable Airbnbs. Can you kind of walk me through, without selling the secrets, can you kind of walk me through your process using data to identify these properties or high potential properties?
So I've had to explain this many times. And by having to explain it many times, I've tried to make it as simple as I possibly can, right? The one thing that I look for is I look for a property that meets something that we call the 20% rule. So the price to rent ratio. In other words, if I buy a home for $500,000, it needs to make $100,000 a year in revenue. If I can meet that simple metric, then I know it's going to cash flow at an amount that I'm going to be happy with. Okay. So that's sort of like the base thing I want. And when I'm going to look for a market, I just want to see that the market has the ability to do that. Because sometimes you go and look at a market and the properties cost, $1 million, but they're only going to make 100,000. And that could be because the property's overpriced or there's not enough demand or both, right? Okay. And so then therefore it's not going to cash flow in a way that I'm going to be happy with. And so then
you're going to be happy with it.
You might be happy with it.
Damn you.
I'm not. Yeah, a lot of people are like, a lot of people give me shit about the 20% rule. They're like, that's too high. It doesn't need to be that high. That's why I always say what I'm happy with, right? Like that's where I want it to be.
Yes.
By the way, all of that data is publicly available as well. So it's not, when I say 100% success rate, you can go and fact check me to know that if I'm not bullshitting on that, which is why I feel so confident to be able to say that. So Anyways, with that being said, you're going to use this 20% rule to figure out which market has the ability to cash flow at a very high level. Okay. Then from there, what you're going to do is you're just going to study the properties that currently exist within that market and understand what the top performers are doing that's allowing them to be top performers.
Okay.
And the way you figure that out is you look at everything they have. Okay. Whether it be the size of the property, the amenities, the design, whatever it is, you just kind of make notes on everything that you're seeing. Then what you want to do is look at the properties that are not making as much and do the exact same thing. Make notes on how many bedrooms, bathrooms, their size, what they look like, all of that. And what you'll find out is that these ones that are, let's call them underperformers, are just missing certain things that these other performers have. And that's it. And that's literally it. So it's like, so if I want to be a top performer, I need X, Y, and Z, right?
Okay.
And then from there, you find a property that meets the 20% rule that could have X, Y, and Z, and you put it together to have X, Y, and Z. And now you're at the top portion of that market. And now you have one of the most competitive properties within that market. Now, that is like the simplest and easiest way to be able to explain that. And that's, how you can win within the Airbnb industry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially the simple part. I understood what you were saying.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give, for somebody who's trying to analyze this data, and, effectively and make informed investment decisions? Obviously, the first piece of advice is contact you and your courses. It sounds like, that is probably what you're offering to help them analyze these decisions. But, what would be my first step other than contacting you because you're a badass? But what would be my first step if I didn't know about you?
The problem is that people make the wrong first step. And it's always, they go and look at pretty properties that get them excited, and they start to worry about, if they got an Airbnb, how are they going to message the guests? How are they going to clean the home? How are they going to do these things? And then they let their emotions get wrapped up into this property. So that's the mistake everybody makes, I guess. Honestly, I've said this many times. I have a biased opinion, but I am the start of your Airbnb journey. I am the start. Okay. So what I mean by that is if you are going to get in, the number one advice is to go through the Bianchi method and learn to understand the data. The reason that's so important to start with over absolutely everything is because if you buy the wrong property, it doesn't matter how well you design it, manage it, or rent it, it's not going to make money. I always say that every property can be pretty, but not every property can cash flow. And you're trying to build up a business here. And if your business does not make money, you're not going to keep it around. If a Subway did not make money on an annual basis, they're shutting it down. And so then therefore you got to make sure that the Airbnb that you're going to get is actually going to cash flow. And so if you understand the data, you can find a property that's actually going to cash flow. And the best way to understand the data is to go through the Bianchi method. And that's it. That is the place to start. And then you can figure everything else out afterwards. Because if you get a place and you set it up and it's beautiful, it's really well done, and then you don't clean it properly, you're going to have that guest is going to have a really bad experience, right? You maybe have to refund them all of the money for their stay. However, you're going to learn how to improve your system so that the home is perfectly cleaned every single time by the time the next guest shows up and everything's good to go, right? However, if you buy the wrong property, it's going to take you about a year to 2 of making absolutely no money before you realize I screwed up, right? And so then they're going to have to sell the property and try and find another one. And so the reality is that don't stress over cleaning the property. Don't stress over messaging the guests. Stress over buying the right property.
Very good advice. I'm actually going to connect you with a friend of mine who is looking to expand his Airbnb portfolio. So I'll definitely I'm going to send him your way because I think you could provide tremendous value to him. Okay, so these mastermind courses, so these actually will take people, and we're just looking at them, but literally step by step by step on how to accomplish what they're trying to learn here.
If you actually look at the courses too, so I released 3 at the same time. One is called the Airbnb Starter Pack, and the other one is Airbnb Data Basics. And so if you're an absolute newbie, that's where you start. You understand both those things, then you hop into the Bianchi method. Yeah. So if you're a newbie, again, I'm being very serious. You start with me. There's nowhere else to go to get it right from the start.
Understanding your value and your worth will ultimately help you provide the best services possible. And what I love is that I could take this course on my own time.
Yeah.
Right. I can go through each video and, maybe test what you're saying or, do some research based on what you said. And then I can start the next course at my own,
Mhm.
my own pace. And it really looked like the whole user experience from the creating your account to the back end, very simple and easy to manage. So
Yeah, we did it on this podcast. That was the first time ever doing that. That was awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Well, I truly feel that it's important to share the amazing things that our guests are doing. And I really, truly believe that you want to help people. And there's nothing like that. I truly believe that if you love what you're doing and if you believe in what you're offering, you can change people's lives.
I will state that I am no one's guru. I'm not a like a coach, right? So I actually don't do I don't have a course where I actually get on and like coach people. I don't do that.
Yeah. But through your videos, you're really coaching.
Through the videos. Yeah.
Through your courses.
Right. I see it as like, I don't have the personality where I can hop on a call every single day and kind of like, message people and answer all these questions. But I see the data analysis kind of like math, like 1 + 1 = 2. And if you don't know that, then math is hard. But if you do understand this simple process with the data, it's pretty straightforward. Like in other words, there's almost just like one way to understand the data to get the answers. Right. And so, if there is one way that works and it gets a job done, then everybody should know that one way, and then it will work, right, for everybody. And so I haven't got into the life-changing business just yet where, transforming people's lives, but maybe this content is helping people find these properties and it is helping change lives. I hope so. That'd be cool.
Well, with 100% success rate, I mean, come on. You're changing lives. You're making a difference in people's pocketbooks, which ultimately leads them to bigger and better opportunities and the options to live their life by design.
Accurate. Yeah. You're not terribly wrong. A lot of the people we work with, though, are like accredited investors at this moment.
Yeah.
And so, the life changing for them isn't as drastic as some of the other people who can't even afford the course in the first place. So I hope there's people out there who, couldn't afford the course in the first place, went through it, understood it, and actually found profitable properties, and it did make a difference to their life. That'd be pretty cool. If you're somebody like that, reach out. I'd love to hear that story.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's strsearch.com, just so y'all know. If you are interested in the Airbnb world, check this out because he knows what he's talking about. How did you get into data? Like, obviously, it seems like you love data. So, like, were you excited about this in school? Not many people in the world just love to sit there and analyze data.
Yeah, that's true. No, so I actually don't have a formal data background at all. Like, I didn't go to school for it. Didn't even really excel at math, honestly. And it was more brought on from this, I don't know if this is accurate, but it's what's coming to my mind, this like fear of failure of, right? And it felt like the answer to not failing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So it was like I saw the data, I saw the numbers, and I knew if I could understand it, then I could ensure that I wouldn't buy a unprofitable Airbnb. And so then therefore, the more I understood it, the more likelihood I would not make a mistake. And so if I could get that right, then I could have success. And so I was like, okay, let me get this right. And then I'll go from there. And so I think I just got obsessed with that. Like I just got obsessed with getting it right and making sure I didn't make that mistake. And that requires to just understand the data inside and out. But then what really where it changed to teaching other people and giving other people that information, because there was a point in time where I didn't do that, right? Mm-hmm. Was I just talked to too many people that effed up, that just got the wrong property in the wrong place. I was in the Chicago market. I knew it like the back of my hand. I knew it worked. I knew it didn't work. And people were like, yeah, I got an Airbnb. I was like, oh, cool. Where? And they would show me and they'd tell me what they got. I go, well, that's going to fail. I'm like, I just knew instantly in my head, like they were going to lose money and it would take maybe, a year for them to realize that, but they would realize it eventually and they were not going to make any money. And I just knew instantly almost every time. So, it just, I don't know. It bothered me that, people couldn't find a profitable property. I'm like, well, there's clearly a need for this. So
do you only do this nationwide or do you actually, offer your services, all over?
Right now it's just the United States. Yeah.
You never know, right?
I think I want to get into Europe really bad, actually. I think there's a huge opportunity in Europe. The Europe market's like twice the size, and it's very different. So Europe is likely where we're headed next.
Fantastic. Okay, you guys need to follow him to Europe. So with data, analysis, like we have to do it with, paid ads, for example, right? So I have to monitor and say, okay, this ad is working, this ad is working, this one is not. And then so we remove that ad and we add another one into test. So for us, it's always about testing, analyze, optimize, and making sure that we do it right the first time and not waste money on, ads that don't work. I mean, you have to understand the analytics, even in, the organic side of social media, which we do a lot of. You have to understand the user behavior and what is happening on your page and what you need to do to change it or how you can improve. And ultimately, to me, it's all about authenticity. And so that's really what we try to push is understanding the user experience from beginning to end and making sure that we are changing things up as the data changes. I kind of love data too, and I was never good at math either. So I probably not as much as you do, but it's interesting. It's really cool to see, what the numbers really are, right? Mm-hmm. It's not an assumption. It's not a guess. This is fact because numbers don't lie, right?
Yep.
Unless you screw it up. I mean, the only errors are human errors, right? I mean, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, with dependent, I will throw a caveat in there that the people who are also the data miners and analysts and data scientists can put in a bad formula and come up with a bad answer. So if you actually were to look at every single different data provider that is out there, there's like 5 or 6 of them. They actually all show different annual revenue numbers for each property. So if you look at one property, they all are going to show a different projection of how much that property actually made. And so that's just a data scientist that came up with their own formula based off of the data that they had gathered. Mm-hmm. So you have to also take in that data and try to ensure that analyzing it and that the number that you're given, right? If I said, hey, this makes 100,000, how do I know that that's accurate, right? So you have to take it a step back and be like, well, is that right or wrong, right? And you do that with looking at all the different providers, but also looking at all the other properties. And if you can find like a trend within the property and something, or in the data, mm-hmm. you find a trend, right? You're always going to see a trend. That is what data is. It's trends and consistencies and patterns and things like that. And if there is something wrong with the pattern where it's like beautiful home, beautiful home, beautiful home, ugly home, but they're all making the same amount of money, that ugly home data is probably wrong. And when it says it's making 100,000 and the one above it's also making 100,000, but this one is significantly more beautiful in comparison to that one, that number's likely wrong. And there's something going wrong with the data behind the scenes. Anyways, I'm kind of going too deep into this, but there is like layers to all the data that you're going to be going through naturally.
No, I'm glad that you share that because I don't think many people realize that the numbers won't lie, but it could be human error that causes the numbers to be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Again, annual revenue number is like the most useful number in Airbnb data, where they say this Airbnb is making $100,000 a year. Well, how did they get to that number? What is their process? What's their algorithm? What are they looking for? What are they not looking for? And then you take in the actual way that people are using Airbnbs, whether it be the host or the guest, and knowing that, sometimes hosts will block off 3 months at a time to be able to renovate the entire property. And that company that's tracking the data will not realize that it's blocked off and they think it's actually booked by a guest, and that causes a huge error in the data, and all of a sudden it looks like they're making 150,000 instead of 100,000. And so it's like, well, that's a big deal, right? That's a huge
difference. It's a big difference.
Yeah. Or even if it's a $10,000 difference, that again can be all of your revenue. That could be all of your profit. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting into the weeds now, but that is the process and things you got to be looking out for,
So you talked about personal development. I am a big proponent of personal and professional development. Why do you think that's important for business owners?
Shitheads don't go far.
Okay.
I don't know. That was the first thing that came to my mind, right? If you're just a bad human, you can rip people off. You really can, right? And maybe you can make it somewhat far. Maybe you do make a bunch of money, but like it always falls apart. It always gets destroyed. Like look at watch any of those movies about like the guy who ripped everybody off and look where he is now. Look how it turned into a drug addiction. Like look at whatever you want. And it's never a great lifestyle, right? So with that being said, if you start to think about your life from the point of right now today to the point where you're going to die, and you just think like, what is the best way to go so that when I die, I can look back at my life and be like, I did a good job, right? I'm happy. I'm proud of myself, whatever it may be. Doing anything wrong feels terrible. And yourself when you're about to die is going to feel terrible about that. Now, maybe some people are like, who cares? I'm going to die, right? But I want to look back at my life and be like, I was not a bad person, right? That's kind of like I tried my best to do good. And or something along those lines, right? Every decision that I like to make, I always think to myself about when I'm going to die or remind myself that I'm going to die because it's a fact of life and not enough people think about things that way. And if you think about things that way, it makes everything a lot less stressful, easier, and the decisions become easier as well. Because in that moment, you might be thinking to yourself like everything's going to shit, but then you think like, I'm going to die one day. It's not that big of a deal. Nobody's going to remember me. Especially within 100 years, no matter how big of a statement I make in this world, who cares, right?
Okay.
Let me just try and do my absolute best today and not make everything terrible in this moment. So this is a really long-winded answer, but what I'm trying to get at is like, why is self-development such a big deal when it becomes to the entrepreneurial world? And it's because if you're a good person, you can add a lot of value to the world, but you can also be a great leader to the people that you're either working with or trying to help, right? And by doing both of those things, it makes for a great life. And so then when you are about to die, you can look back on your life and be like, that was a great life, right? I did well by my standards. And you know what's actually funny is like, I think this kind of ties in, is that I genuinely want to be a farmer so bad.
Really? I love that. Come to Wyoming.
Yeah, I live. There's a farm right in my backyard, and I see the farmer on the tractor, and he's going by, and I am so jealous every single time because I would love it when I'm out there mowing my lawn. I love it. I am just in peace, and it's like my favorite thing. But there's something inside of me that just does not allow me to do that because in my mind, I'm not providing enough value. Right.
Okay.
And I think that's like the entrepreneurial part of me where it's like, I could be providing more value in this moment with what I'm doing. And so I don't know. I'm giving a really long-winded answer, but
I want you. So stop saying that. You're doing great.
I hope that other people enjoy it as well. The whole summary of that is I want to look back at my life and be happy with what I accomplished. And I think self-development and understanding yourself and your business and everything goes a long way to make that happen.
And I think if I can add to that, I think it makes you're remembered for being a good person. You know, when we die, we leave behind people who are going to remember us, right? Yeah. So I want those people to remember me as a kind human being who, you know, was out there really trying to provide value to others. I don't want them to remember me as, you know, oh, she, you know, constantly angry or, you know, these are different types of things, you know, all these emotions you can feel, really can slow you down in life and just turn you angry. So, you know, understanding where do these feelings come from? Because we all have them, right? We all have these feelings. We all have these intrusive thoughts. We all have this imposter syndrome. We all have, you know, go through an imposter syndrome, maybe not you, but
I definitely do. Definitely.
So that's, to me, I want to know that I released those. I broke those ties of those emotions that just drag me down. At first I recognize them, I appreciate them, and then I release them. And I think by doing so, it allows us to live without those past, you know, without the past. Really focusing on where our future can be. So I think it's very important.
Yeah, I want to add something that I just realized as you're explaining that. Are you familiar with Alex Hormozi?
Yes. Okay,
so I can't remember what the term is for it, but he's the type of person who like doesn't believe in anything after life. Like he just believes that there's nothing whatsoever, which is fine. Like I don't really know where I stand with that right now either, but he always talks about the fact that no matter what, like 10 years after you die, 20 years after you die, 100 years after you die, nobody will remember you, especially 1,000 years from when you die, right? And he's 100% accurate. I mean, literally one of the only people that are remembered are the people that are within religions that have somehow stuck around for the entire time period, right?
Yes.
Regardless. Anyways, what I realized as you were saying that was that you said that you wanted to do good so that your other people would see that you were doing good, and they sort of remember you as that.
Yes.
Right. And what I was realizing is that even if we do pass away, the amount of people that we affect throughout our time period we're alive that are younger than us might want to embody us, right? In the way that we lived and we acted. They want to be good, right? Yeah. Then that makes them want to be more, whether they remember us or not, they want to be like that, right? And then they have kids and their kids see them doing the same thing and they want to embody that, right? And so you kind of, who you are as a person, how you live up to and how you encourage other people to live up to can live on for generations that way rather than through memory.
I love that. That's fantastic. So I have one more question for you. Who has been the most innovative or influential entrepreneur or individual that you've known? Who has inspired you?
I'll just say, I mentioned earlier in this call that I wanted to be a producer, right? Like that was kind of the way that I thought about myself and being a good producer for myself, my family, and anyone else. And I think that comes from my dad. My dad was a factory worker and then a janitor for the city. So he had like two of like what would be considered the lowest careers you could have, right? However, he also had 9 kids in total. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters, and he supported all of us on that salary. And he did an absolutely amazing job of all of us becoming a very loving family. And, I am always grateful and thankful for that. And I see him as like a very successful human being based off of that criteria rather than his career criteria. And so he was an embodiment of being a producer for my family. And so I want to embody that with my life as I move forward as well.
Well, he brought tears to my eyes. All right, so let's do a shout out real quick of how people can find you, and then I will release you from my chains.
Thank you. At the Airbnb Data Guy or strsearch.com. Erica, I appreciate you having me on here. This was hands down one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done. I love talking about this stuff. So thank you for opening up these questions.
All right, go change some lives. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great episode. I hope you had as much fun as I did. If you want more of this goodness, make sure you subscribe so that you get notifications for future podcasts. And if you found value from this, please share it with others. You can visit our website at cwgdigital.com. This is Erica Bailey. I am your host, and I will see you next time.